Welcome back to I Need a Coach, where we interview top coaches, experts, authors, speakers, hear their stories of success, and help you build your business. My name's Adam Packard. I'm the host of I Need a Coach. And for the last 7 years, we've helped hundreds and hundreds of coaches, consultants, speakers help spread their message authentically, start more conversations, and generate more leads. So I'm super excited today. My guest is Bob Burg. Bob is the author of Endless Referrals, Go Giver. I've been reading Bob's books since they came out. He is amazing. So I'm super excited to have him on the podcast today. And he's going to share the 5 laws of being a go giver, how to apply that to your coaching business, and how to step authentically into being your true self and really giving first, offering a lot more value in exchange for compensation and generating clients on demand. So welcome, Bob, to the show. Welcome back to I Need a Coach. I'm your host, Adam Packard, and I'm super excited to have a special guest. They're all special, but this one maybe more so since I've read all of his books. Welcome, Bob Burg, to the podcast. Thanks for joining us, Bob.
Thank you, Adam. Great to be with you.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know who Bob Burg is, you probably haven't been to a Barnes & Noble or a bookstore in a number of years, but he's known for Endless Referrals, which is a classic book, and then The Go Giver, which has... You've sold over 250,000 copies, and it's written in 20 plus languages. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit old, some of the material you looked up, but that's okay. It's about 1,250,000 in 30 languages. But yeah, it's a few books here or there.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So, well, and we probably have some mutual friends. I told him I used to work in the motivational speaking world, so I'm sure we crossed paths. But for those of you that don't know your backstory, I'd love for you to kind of rewind. I don't know how many years back you want to go, but before you kind of get into,
Sure.
Writing the books and doing the speaking, where did you start and how did you kind of transition into that, and where did you get your start?
Yeah, so I began as a broadcaster, first in radio and then in television. I was working for a very small ABC affiliate in the Midwestern United States. I wasn't particularly good at it, though, so it wasn't long before I wasn't a broadcaster anymore. And I got into sales just to, earn some money. I had really nowhere else to go, right?
Yep.
And nothing else to do. So I floundered for the first few months because I had no formal knowledge of sales. Eventually I found my way into a bookstore. I wasn't really even sure what I was looking for. I just knew that I needed something. And I came across this book. It was called How to Master the Art of Selling by a mutual friend of ours.
That's
Tom
funny.
Hopkins.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And I got Mr. Hopkins' book, and I totally devoured it. I then got a book by Zig Ziglar, totally devoured it. And those two gentlemen really set me on the path. I now had a methodology. This is 40 years ago. So, it wasn't as though everybody just knew about sales training back then. I didn't know. And but really, they showed me how to do it through their books, and then I bought their tape series.
Right.
And I just started. I loved it. Loved sales. Loved learning everything about it that I could. Started going to seminars. But what was the best part? Was the personal development part. Because you start learning about all these other books you didn't know about. How to Win Friends and Influence People, and The Richest Man in Babylon, and The Greatest Salesman in the World, and Cybernetics, and The Magic of Thinking Big. All these amazing, mind-altering books, and you learn that selling is really, let's say, success is an inside job, right? It begins in here, it manifests outwardly, but you got to get that information into your head and then into your heart. And so I just, really enjoyed it, worked my way up to sales manager of another company, and started showing others what was working for me, and, other companies. And so just small little, things, but it gave me the idea that, there's something here. I really enjoy doing this. And then just, learned how to have a speaking business, a speaking practice, and eventually, began writing some books. And that's kind of, that's the what do they call it? The origin story.
Yeah, got it. So that's crazy. So he referenced Tom Hopkins, who wrote Master of the Art of Selling, and I was Tom's road manager for a number of years.
Oh,
so that's
I know. Isn't that awesome?
our connection there. But you mentioned some great books. I mean, Og Mandino and Maxwell Maltz and Dale Carnegie, Zig, obviously. So who are some of your what are some of your favorite books? I'm curious. I mean, obviously you mentioned some classics there. What would you consider kind of some of your favorite books that you've read?
There's so many of them that have made such a big difference in my life in different ways. Now I'd say so you take like Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Ziegler, and their books taught me how to sell, basically, right? Then you got Brian Tracy. It took me to the again, it was after that, but talk about wisdom, right? And then people like Jim Rohn and people like just people you get to learn from. One book that really made a huge difference for me in terms of my mind and understanding was Maxwell Maltz's book, Cybernetics, because that was the first book I read in which I learned that it's our belief systems, right? That which we have been handed, right, through a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television, right, but that from our very early in our development, it's how we see the world. And our level of success can never be any greater than our most limiting belief. And I didn't know that. And when I read that book, I realized why, I would succeed to a certain level and then sabotage it. I would never let myself get to I didn't know why, but it was because that was my belief about life itself. It was my belief about me. It was about my belief regarding what I deserved, right? And so that really said to me, okay, Burg, if you want different results, you're going to have to learn to think differently.
Yeah.
And so I think with all the books I've read and the tapes and CDs and all those things, and I think what I've tried to do is make it a point to learn something new from each one that would help me advance, while also making sure to take those things that I know and solidify them.
Yep.
It's easy to forget.
Awesome. So you started doing some small speaking engagements here and there, got hired, did some small work, and then at what point did you start doing the writing, and how did that kind of lead into bigger opportunities for you?
Yeah, so I was once my speaking career got started, it took me 3 years to get going. It's like any business, you a lot of work in the beginning until you can really establish yourself. And then and during that time, I had produced some again, cassette tape albums that we weren't even at CDs yet. That's how long ago this was. And so I was doing my programs, getting a small fee, selling. A lot of times it was, a bunch of tapes, and that was where a lot of the money was being made and so forth. And so I was at a National Speakers Association meeting a few years into my speaking career. And I was talking to a couple of more veteran speakers, and they suggested that maybe now the time was right for me to write a book. And I said, I really don't want to do that. First, I just have no desire to do that. But secondly, I'm kind of doing well enough selling my tapes, and I think eventually my speaking fees will get higher. And they said, yeah, but if you write a book, what's going to happen is you're going to be able to position yourself as an expert. You're going to make yourself much more marketable, much more bookable. You're going to get higher fees. And they kind of listed all these benefits of doing that. And I said, well, I try to be a good student, and they seemed to, know what they were talking about, and they were successful people. So, I wrote my first book, Endless Referrals, and was very lucky that one of the speakers there who was guiding me, he introduced me to his agent. So I didn't have to go through the whole thing of writing the query letters and then the trying to get an agent and having 20 or 30 or 40 of them tell me no. And so I was able to just get an agent, and he loved the idea for the book. He shopped it around and very quickly found a publisher, a New York publishing house. So I got very fortunate there. And then, it was a matter of really promoting the heck out of the book and using it as a positioning tool for my speaking. And they were right. Everything they said, it just helped me immeasurably in terms of the business.
It's interesting. So, network. One of the, guys that was one of your mentors gave you that introduction, it probably saved you years of trial and error of finding the right publisher, because I know that world is brutal. So that's awesome. It's all in who you know, right? It's the connections that we make and the relationships that we build, and you never know how someone can help you. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's dive into the Go Giver a little bit. So where did that idea come from? I know you co-authored that with John David Mann, correct?
Yeah,
so how did you guys get connected, and then where did the idea for the book come from?
So with Endless Referrals, it was a book on basically creating relationships that would lead to new business and referrals. The premise was that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And so, it was a how-to book, and I'd always read, since I began in sales, I always enjoyed when I'd read a business parable, right? I think parables which are stories, I think connect on a deeper level, a heart-to-heart level. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if one day, I could take something like Endless Referrals and turn it into a business parable. But while I can tell a story from stage, that's different from writing a work of fiction, which is what a parable is. Well, so fortunately, in the early 2000s, I was writing a monthly column for a magazine, and the editor-in-chief was a guy named John David Mann. And John was a delight to work with. He was, very knowledgeable, great writer, and had a wonderful reputation even back then as a fantastic writer. He would edit my stuff and send it back to me, and our running joke sort of became that I would send it right back. I'd send it back to him and just say, John, you write my stuff better than I write my stuff. And he was just a great guy. And so I began to think more and more about this idea, this parable idea. And coming up with the title was pretty easy, because I just asked myself, what is it that is the common element to people who are sustainably successful salespeople and entrepreneurs? Okay. And the common element is that they are givers. They're always looking for ways to provide immense value to others. Okay. And so, say the go giver as sort of a pattern interrupt from the better known go getter, even though a go getter is not the opposite of a go giver. We love go getters because go getters take action. Right? We love go-getters. We say be a go-getter, a person of action, and a go-giver, a person who is absolutely, totally, 100% laser focused on providing immense value to others. That's a powerful combination. The opposite of a go-giver is actually a go-taker, right? And so, but it's still, in terms of a title, it's that kind of, and so we came up with the go-giver. He agreed with that. And I just said, I'd love you to be the lead writer and storyteller. So he and his fiance back then, now his wife, they've been married for many years, but Anna, they were visiting her mom on the Gulf Coast of Florida. So they took a 4-hour drive one afternoon. They came over to, I'm on the East Coast in Jupiter, Florida. We had about a 3-hour dinner and just discussed the idea of the book itself. He then called me about 3 weeks later and said, I think we got something here. Let's do that. Let's do this. So then, we actually we got another agent that we decided to work with, and the interesting thing though is that, and they're a wonderful agency. We went through 24 New York publishing houses who said no.
Even after the success with Endless Referrals?
Yeah. Before the 25th one, Portfolio, an imprint of Penguin Random House, said yes, and they turned out to be a great publishing partner. Very supportive and knowledgeable. So, it's just, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what you're going to get the no's. It's just part of business, part of sales, part of life. But typically if you hang with it. And we made course corrections along the way. Some of the feedback from the publishers was, well, we just don't want to do a parable. Well, it's fine. It's not their business model that they want to do. Some said there's really no more room for another parable. They've all been written. We always hear that from we didn't pay that much attention to that. But then there were those who said, well, it needs this, this, and this. Or, well, Burg's platform. And when a publisher says platform, what they mean is how many people do you have that are already going to buy your book? Because it wasn't communicated well enough to them. So I had to go back and really kind of redo that whole, and John and I made, some changes in the book where there was some, in other words, we put our egos aside and said, how do we make this more better? Right. And that's, and then a year later, it all came together. So
that's awesome. I mean, you talk about books that are parables. Obviously you're a huge Og Mandino fan. I think his books, the stories that he tells and the lessons he's able to weave through those are just some of my favorite
I've read
books.
Almost all of Og's. It was fantastic. Such a thrill to open for him. About a year before he died, I opened for him at a couple of public events. Yeah. And it turned out we were actually from the same town that he grew up. We both grew up in the same town. So that was kind of a cool thing too to find out.
That's cool. That's cool. So let's talk a little bit more about the philosophies in the book and some of the 5 values. Are they what would you call them? And let's kind of go through those. And for those of you that haven't read the book, obviously go get it. But just kind of give a little synopsis of the 5 values that kind of are what Go Givers stand for.
Yeah. So very dramatically, we call them the 5 laws of stratospheric success. And but they're, as you said, they're different values, principles that when used in conjunction, it's basically what people since time immemorial, for as long as there have been market economies, have done in order to be sustainably successful. So the first one is the law of value. And the law of value says your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, when you first hear this, it sounds a little counterintuitive, a little counterproductive even. What, give more in value than I take in payment? That sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. So we simply have to understand the difference between price and value. Price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is. Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, what have you, that brings so much worth or value to another person that they will willingly exchange their money for it and be glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit. A very simple example I like to use, a concrete one, is the accountant you hire to do your taxes, and she charges you, let's say, $1,000. That's her fee or her price, literally $1,000. But what value does she give you? Well, through her years of experience, her taking the time to get to know you and what you're looking to accomplish, learning about your business. She's able to save you $5,000 in taxes. She saves you countless hours of having to do it yourself, right? She provides you and your family with the security and the peace of mind of knowing it was done correctly. So she gave you well over $5,000 in value in exchange for $1,000 fee or price. She gave you more in value than she took in payment. So you feel great about it. And she also made a very healthy profit herself, because it was worth it to her to trade or exchange her time, her knowledge, her energy, and so forth for doing that. So, in fact, one of my great mentors, Harry Brown, used to say, in any free market-based economy, free market simply meaning no one's forced to do business with anyone else, there should always be 2 profits. The buyer profits and the seller profits, because each come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand, which is what happened there. Now, the key, though, is this, Adam, that it happened only because your accountant was not focused on her fee. She was focused on the immense value that she was giving or providing you. The fee was simply the reward. So this is why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. It's the thunder, if you will, to value's lightning, meaning the value you're providing another person must be the focus. The money you receive is simply a natural result of the value you've provided. Now, law number 2 is the law of compensation. This says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number 1 said give more in value than you take in payment, law number 2 says that the more people whose lives you touch with this exceptional value, the more money with which you'll be rewarded. So your accountant in the first example did a great job of giving you more in value than she took in payment. So you feel great about her. You would do business with her again, and you'd probably refer her to others. Well, her other clients feel the same way about her. So our accountant is very quickly amassing what we call an army of personal walking ambassadors. And as she continues to add more value to the lives of more and more people, her income will continue to grow and grow. As the mentor in that part of the story, Nicole Martin advised Joe, the protege, the law of value represents your potential income, but it's not enough to just serve one person or a few people. The law of compensation is about your actual income, because it's all about how many lives you impact. And that's key. We could say exceptional value plus significant reach equals very high compensation. Law number 3 is the law of influence. This says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Now, let me clarify that, if I may. Let me qualify that statement. When we say place other people's interests first, we certainly don't mean you should be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial in any way. Not at all. It's simply, as Joe, the protege, learned from several of the mentors, the golden rule of business, of sales, of networking, what have you, is simply that, again, as we discussed earlier, all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Well, you know, Adam, there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you in others than by genuinely moving from that I focus or me focus to an other focus, looking for ways, as Sam, one of the mentors, advised Joe, to make your win all about the other person's win. Law number 4 is the law of authenticity. This says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. In this part of the story, Deborah shared that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you show up as yourself, day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They feel comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. Why? Because it's an important, powerful, I should say, element of human nature that we want to make sense of our world. This in a world that often doesn't make sense. We want consistency in a world that's often very inconsistent, right? So when you show up the same way, they know who they're getting, and they feel very, very comfortable with that. It's very difficult to establish trust. It's even more difficult to maintain trust when you're not consistent, and consistency is a huge part of authenticity. And then law number 5, the law of receptivity, says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. This really means nothing more than understanding that, yeah, you breathe out, you also have to breathe in. It's not one or the other. You breathe out carbon dioxide, you breathe in oxygen. You breathe out, which is giving. You breathe in, which is receiving. Unfortunately, the world gives us absolutely horrible anti-prosperity messages at pretty much every turn, right? It's such a shame. So it's important to realize that despite what you see in the headlines, giving and receiving are not opposite concepts. Giving and receiving are simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in tandem. The key is that you focus on the giving and then you allow the receiving. And when you can do that, now you've brought home all 5 laws to work for you. And, that's where we are at with that.
That's amazing. No, thank you for sharing that. So I want to apply this. So a lot of the audience that listens in are coaches, obviously people that are into personal growth and self improvement, but
Sure.
applying some of those laws, principles to someone that's in the coaching business. Obviously they all apply. Give me some examples on how someone can add more value, and then how important it is to obviously show up authentic and be yourself, but come from a point of, a lot of people are looking for opportunities. They might not have as many sales calls, sales opportunities. So when they have those, you can come off a little bit desperate. You can come off a little bit needy.
Absolutely.
How do you focus on the other person when you need the sale to kind of keep your business going? So how would you apply that to someone that's getting their coaching business started? What would be the, ideas that you could, offer more value in exchange for compensation? And then how do you kind of get around that mindset of I have limited opportunities, so I need to make the most of them without feeling like you are coming from a place of desperation?
Exactly. So the first thing is that you want to begin building your network of personal walking ambassadors right away. Start building that. And you're going to do that by connecting with people and focusing on them, right? Not focusing on your coaching business, because right now they don't care. Right? When they first meet you, they are not concerned with you and your coaching business and what you can do. They're concerned about themselves. So you want to engage in building a relationship by making it about them, being other focused. One of the things I first learned when I started out in sales, and I was on the phone a lot, making a lot of calls, is that nobody ever hung up the phone on me while they were talking. It was a really interesting thing, right? If I'm talking about myself and my terrific products and services, and they're not, they're out of there. But if they're talking about themselves, they are totally engaged. And, it's the old saying, if you've ever been in a conversation with someone who let you talk all about yourself, you kind of came away from the conversation saying, wow, what a fascinating conversationalist that person is. So I like to ask what I call feel-good questions. Feel-good questions are questions that are not intrusive, they're not invasive, they're not salesy in nature. They simply make this person feel good about themselves, which in turn causes them to feel good about you. So if you're talking to somebody whose name is Gary, who is who sells copying machines, and you ask what I call, again, feel-good questions, so they're non-threatening, they're not right, and it's simply, how did you get started selling copying machines? Or a little bit more gracious way would be, how did you get your start as an office products professional? Now, this is it's certainly not a clever question or a slick question. In fact, it's a pretty mundane question. How did you get started in your business? But Adam, it's a question people love to answer. They love to answer that question. Why? Because you're making them the star. You're asking them to share their story with you. This is something that this person is never asked, right? Their own family has never asked them how they got their start in their business. And here's you who they first met, who rather than, giving them this elevator speechy type of thing and trying to get them interested in you, no, you're focused on them, okay? How did you get started in the so-and-so business? A nice follow-up to that is, what do you enjoy most about your work, right? This kind of flies in the face of traditional sales teaching, where we're supposed to reach into their heart and tear it out right away so we can find their pain. Now, there's a certain point in the relationship where, you're going to need to gently and tactfully help them see where they're going to be much better off, be able to solve their problems and challenges and be much more, profitable, effective, productive, whatever with your help. But right now isn't the time. You've just met. There's no real relationship there. So right now your focus is on them. And instead of finding their pain, find their joy. Again, you want them to feel good about themselves and associate that with you. How, what do you enjoy most about what you do? Now, after you've asked a couple of questions and the rapport's begun to be established, it's time to ask what I call the one key question that will absolutely distinguish you from the rest. And the question sounds like this: Gary, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with would be a good client for you? Mary Ellen, that's fascinating what you do. Tell me, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good prospective customer for you? A nice way to lead into that, by the way, to frame it, is to say, Susan, I always love connecting good people with other good people. Tell me, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good client for you? What have you done when asking that question? Well, a couple of things. One, you've continued to focus on them, show them interest in them, but you've also, the way that you have framed that question, their answer is going to actually help you to help them. So again, let's go back to Gary, who sells copying machines. And you say, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good prospect for you? And he says, well, I guess if you're ever in an office and you notice a copying machine, and next to that copying machine's a waste paper basket, which is filled to the rim and overflowing with crumpled up pieces of paper, that's a really good sign that copying machine has been breaking down a lot lately, and that would be an excellent prospect for me. So Gary's just shown you, he's told you how to add immense value to his life. And not only that, he knows you're interested enough to care, right? So, that's just one way. It's a very quick conversation with someone where right away you're providing value to them by making it about them. Now, probably nothing's going to come up about your business at that first conversation, though it certainly might be. Again, because you showed so much interest in them, they're probably going to then say to you, so what do you do? Tell me more about what you do. That's fine if a conversation starts, but the big thing is probably nothing's going to happen during that first conversation. But here's where you want to follow up and follow through, and sending a personalized handwritten thank you note to that person that next day. That just something else I learned from our mutual mentor, Tom Hopkins, right? Where, it says, hi, Gary, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you. If I can ever refer business your way, I certainly will. Best regards, Bob. Put it in an envelope, hand write it, hand stamp it, not a meter machine, hand stamp, send it out that day. Imagine how they feel when they get this. And by the way, my suggestion is that the note card gets set up. I would put it in an 8.5 by 3 inches so it fits in a regular number 10 envelope. You've got your information on there, including at the very bottom your benefit statement. It can be something short and sweet, which is other focus, such as if you're a coach, it might be helping people to boom, whatever it is, the benefit of your coaching. Okay. Don't include a business card in there. Just make it but they're going to get that. They're going to keep that. Now, you want to connect with them on social media, but you also want to, find out about them. What are their hobbies? What are their interests? What's of value to them? And send them things from time to time, whether it's online, whether it's, through the mail, what have you. Develop that relationship. When you can, introduce them to someone who might be a good prospect or whatever. Great, do that. So all these things you're doing. Now, this isn't going to net you business right away, necessarily. Sometimes it can, but that's a matter of just if the stars are aligned, okay? No, you want to do this starting now consistently, because you're going to want to have all those walking ambassadors referring you and doing and so forth. But for right now, when you meet someone, okay, and you have an opportunity to share your services with them, what you said is a great point. When you have a limited amount of prospects to talk to, you kind of come at it with a sense of desperation because you need this person more than they need you. And that is not a good way to go about it. So let me help reframe it for a second, okay? Not reframe necessarily the feeling, because you feel as you feel, but reframing a way to approach it, okay? So when you go in there really needing the sale, this person kind of gets that, and you become a lot less attractive to them. So I'm going to suggest that you suspend your self-interest while you speak to them. Here's something I've said for years when I've spoken at sales conferences, okay? I've said, nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, right? Nobody's going to buy from you because you need the money or the business, and nobody's going to buy from you just because you're a really nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. Now, as a coach who owns your own business, you don't have a quota other than paying the bills, but they're still not going to do business with you because you have bills to pay. They're going to do business with you because you have been able to effectively communicate that you're the answer to their needs, wants, and desires. How do you do that? You take the focus off of you and you ask them the discovery questions that's going to help you discover their needs, wants, and desires, their challenges that they're not able to overcome themselves, what's going to move them closer to happiness. And only when you have really discovered that and you know that you have, now it's time to connect, what you do, how you can help in order to match that. Okay. But you've got to go in there. Remember, you've got to just temporarily suspend that neediness, because all it's going to do is turn them off. And the neat thing is, the less needy you appear, the more attractive you are to them.
Yep. No, that's awesome. That's words of wisdom. I know we could probably go on forever. It's funny, the example you brought up was the guy with the copy machine, because my dad actually started a copy machine business. So he's a huge fan of yours too. So he's looking forward to hearing this as well.
Send my regards.
But I know we're at time, so I want to respect that. So now's your opportunity. If people haven't heard of you, obviously go pick up Bob's books. Where can they find out more about you? I know you have a daily email that you send out as well. So the floor is yours to promote yourself, because you deserve it and you've done a lot of good in the world and helped a lot of people. So appreciate that. So feel free to share how people can find you.
Sure. It's just Burg, BURG.com. And while you're there, you can subscribe to what we call the Daily Impact email. And we have a Go-Giver Success Alliance in which we all get together online with Zoom once a month and have some other goodies. And that's $37 a month for the entire membership. So check it out if you'd like.
Awesome. Bob, it's a pleasure to meet you finally, and looking forward to keeping in touch and seeing where the conversations go. Thanks again for coming on.
Pleasure was mine, Adam. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you for joining us on this episode of I Need a Coach. If you've made it this far, I genuinely appreciate your dedication. Putting this podcast together takes a lot of time and energy. In return, we only ask one thing, which is if you could please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps our show get in front of more people so we can help more people. This is Adam Packard signing off. Keep coaching, keep thriving, and see you in the next episode.